everybody, and welcome back to this week's video. I hope you guys all enjoyed last week's video. I had a ton of fun making it, and I've really been so happy with all of the positive feedback and responses that you guys have given, so thank you. Today we are going to be talking about a few books that I feel are really good summer reads. Now, what I mean by that is in the summer, a lot of people are going on vacation, or you're busy with like family functions and get-togethers, and so trying to find a book to read that's not too heavy or not too thick or detailed can be kind of daunting. So I've kind of compiled a few books for you guys that are more of the contemporary genre, that are like nice, light, and fun and easy to read, that can be something that you can throw into a beach bag, take to the beach, take with you on a plane as you go on a trip. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first book is one of my all-time favorites, and it is Where the Heart Is by Billy Letts. This book I read a long time ago. I've read it a couple of times, but they also made a movie out of this story. Natalie Portman played the lead character, who is Novalee, and she is a 17-year-old girl who finds herself in a life that she really, didn't plan out, but that typically tends to be the way that most girls in her community tend to go. She lives in the Midwest in a small little town, but her and her boyfriend decide that they're gonna go off and start this whole new life together. So they stop at a Walmart because she happens to be 7 months pregnant at the beginning of the story. So they stop at this Walmart to pick up a few items for their road trip, and the boyfriend decides that he can't do this, so he takes off. And so Novalee finds herself completely stranded in this town in Oklahoma. She doesn't know anybody, she's far from home, and she's stuck at this Walmart in the middle of Oklahoma. So she ends up actually kind of living in this Walmart, but she keeps a journal that she writes down like everything she takes, so that one day she'll be able to pay it back. She ends up giving birth, or starting to give birth at this Walmart, and she ends up having to stay in this town. So she finds herself surrounded by all of these people who become like really good friends of hers, and some of them become like family to her. So it's even though she was in a really crappy situation, it turns out that this probably was one of the best things that ever happened to her, because we see her transform from this little immature teenage mother at the beginning of the story to a completely independent, powerful, self-sufficient woman at the end of the story. This story is full of laughter and tears, and it's just like a life transformation story. So if you like that kind of thing, I definitely recommend this book. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, and it's just a really great story, a great summer read. So go ahead and check it out. All right, the next book on my list is a story about friendship and betrayal and just how life changes throughout the years, and that is Best Friends Forever by Jennifer Weiner. And this story is about Addie Downs, who is best friends with a girl named Valerie, and they meet when they're in grade school, and they're really good friends. They do everything together until one day during their teenage years, a huge betrayal happens, and it kind of takes the girls and puts them into different categories or different groups in their high school, and they completely lose contact, and they just don't really talk anymore, and they aren't really friends anymore. So flash forward 15 years into the story, and we find that Valerie has become a successful weather woman for a local TV station, while Addie is actually still living in her parents' basement, and she's completely failing at life. She goes on date after date after date, and nothing positive or good seems to happen in her life, until one day she hears a knock at her door. She opens the door to find her childhood best friend Valerie standing there, and all we get is Valerie says, "Something terrible has happened." So it's a really good story. Like I said, it's a fast, quick read. It's about betrayal and loyalty, and the story of fighting between these two best friends. And it's a story about living through tragedy, coming out to the other side, and finding love where you least expect it. I gave this book 3.5 stars on Goodreads. It's, like I said, it's a great summer read, so go ahead and check it out. Sorry about the changing light. I'm filming this in front of my window in my living room, and there's like clouds and stuff out there, so if the light changes on my face, that's why. So the next book on my list is an incredible story. It's super funny and charming, and that is the story of Julie and Julia by Julie Powell. It is a semi-autobiographical story written by Julie Powell. There is now a major motion picture that was released, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, starring Amy Adams and Meryl Streep. The book, you guys, is so good. It is so funny and charming and lovely. We find ourselves following Julie Powell, who is the main character. She's in this dead-end secretarial job, and she just has had enough. She tells herself, you know, I can't live like this anymore, so she decides to add a little bit of spice to her life by cooking through the infamous cookbook of Julia Child. The title of the cookbook is Mastering the Art of French Cooking. There's 524 recipes, and Julie Powell tells herself that she is going to cook through the entire cookbook in the span of 1 year. So it's a really huge undertaking that she goes through, and it not only helps her life to change in more ways than just her pant size. She jokes about that in the book, how she gains a ton of weight, but it's also about just the transformation of a life that was not yours, that you weren't in control of, to something that you completely are of control of and that you can be proud of and that you love. The story is funny, it's charming, it's witty, and it's a really great book to take to the beach or to just sit down at a park and read. I highly recommend it. I gave this 5 stars on Goodreads, so go ahead and check it out. Okay, the next book is Something Blue by Emily Giffin, and this is actually the sequel to Something Borrowed. I did read that, but I actually liked this book better, so I decided to recommend this book for you. This book, we follow Darcy Roan, who is the main character. Everything in her life is perfect. She's beautiful. She has a great fiance. She's happy. Her life is just going the way she wants it until she finds out that her not so best friend Rachel has stolen her fiance. This completely changes everything in Darcy's life. But we also find out that she's pregnant. So that's a little twist in the story that really puts like a wrench in, you know, the already like really sucky circumstances. So Darcy finds herself completely alone for the first time in her life. So she decides, I'm gonna change, you know, my life, my circumstances. So she moves herself across the world to London, but things don't actually change the way that she hopes they will. Now this is because she actually doesn't change anything within herself. She kind of just expects everything around her to change without having to make any personal changes, and she finds out that that's really not the way it works. So she decides that she has to change herself from within if she really wants to begin her journey towards self-awareness, forgiveness, and yeah, motherhood, because again, she's pregnant with her ex-fiance's child. Juicy! This book is full of friendship that turns into betrayal and that leads our main character on a road to self-discovery. I gave this book 4.5 stars on Goodreads. It's entertaining, it's a light, fun read. Yeah, so I liked it and I think you will too. The next book that I recommend to you guys for a great summer read is my favorite one that I have recommended so far, and that is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. This story is incredibly inspiring and beautiful, you guys. It is probably one of my favorite books of all time. They did make a movie out of it, again, like I think it was 10 years ago, and the movie is also spectacular, really, really good. The story follows the main character, whose name is Chio, and she is a 9-year-old girl who lives in a tiny little fishing village with her family until one day tragedy strikes, and she is shipped off and sold to a geisha house in Kyoto, and she is treated terribly at this geisha house. The head geisha, whose name is Hatsumomo, is incredibly jealous of Chio because Chio is ridiculously beautiful, particularly in her eyes. She has these eyes that are really light and they're very rare in this culture. And so Hatsumomo is incredibly jealous and treats Chio terribly and pretty much physically and mentally abuses her. That is until one day when Chio gets rescued by a rival geisha of Hatsumomo's named Mamea, And it's during this time that Chio's name is actually changed to Sayuri, and that becomes her geisha name. And she spends the next good amount of time training like really, really hard to become a geisha. And she ends up being one of the most renowned and popular geishas. But she's becoming this in a world that is on the brink of war. World War II is looming in her future, and her life is going to be forever changed. This story is full of incredibly beautiful imagery. The characters are captivating, and that the lead character, Sayuri, is unforgettable. She becomes like a friend, and the story itself is just completely captivating, and I highly recommend it. I gave this book 5 stars on Goodreads. Like I said, it's one of my all-time favorites. This is probably the heaviest book that I've recommended for this list, but it's definitely worth it. You will enjoy it. I'm not lying. You really will enjoy it, so go ahead and check it out. Alright, you guys, the last book on this list is actually one that I have not read, but I have seen the movie and I really want to read the book. That is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. Again, this is another semi-autobiographical story. I'm just going to read the back of this for you guys so you get kind of an idea of what the story is about. In her early 30s, Elizabeth Gilbert had everything a modern American woman was supposed to want. Husband, country home, successful career, but instead of feeling happy and fulfilled, she felt consumed by panic and confusion. This wise and rapturous book is the story of how she left all these outward marks of success and of what she found in their place. Following a divorce and a crushing depression, Gilbert sets out to examine 3 different aspects of her nature set against the backdrop of 3 different cultures: pleasures in Italy, devotion in India, and on the Indonesian island of Bali, a balance between worldly enjoyment and divine transcendence. I really loved this movie. The movie was starring Julia Roberts, so it's a really good one. You should check that out too. But I'm super excited to read this book. I think that the story is really riveting, and just as a woman, it's really enlightening to see a story of a fellow woman who was completely unhappy with her life, who went through terrible, terrible things such as divorce, yet she took control of it. She didn't let it control her, and she decided that she was going to make a change and come out of it as a better person on the other side. So I'm super excited to read this. Go ahead, check it out, and let me know what you think. All right, you guys, we've come to the end of our list. I hope that you found some books that you would possibly like to read. Let me know if there are any that you pick up and do read or that you have read. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you again so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I put a new video out every single Friday. And be sure to pick up a book, immerse yourself in it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.